Hello everyone, I am Ujjwal Saxena and welcome to my YouTube channel. So I'm back with another exciting machine learning project video this time. And the topic of my today's project is prediction using unsupervised machine learning algorithm. So if you have seen my last two videos, you must be knowing that I've used supervised data machine learning in that two videos, right? But this time I'll be using unsupervised machine learning. So the task has been assigned to me by the Sparks Foundation, right? So the objective of my task is to predict the optimal number of clusters present in a particular data set. The data set is the iris data set, right? That is the consisting of flowers data set. Based on there will be four features in it. I'll be showing you further. So the data set is being is taken from the Kaggle link. Link is being provided in this. All right. So let's begin. First of all, I imported the libraries. I've imported the NumPy library to perform all the matrix operations. And then I've imported the matplotlib library to perform graphical representation. All right. Then I've imported the pandas library to read the data set and saving the model and on. Then I've imported the scikit-learn package to import the data sets and other libraries as well. Then I will also import a Seaborn library to create heat maps and other visualization techniques. So um, yeah. So first of all, I loaded the iris dataset. Yeah. In case of Jupyter Notebook, the steps are quite different. We can just import the data set by just using pd.read CSV. But in case of Google Colab, the format is different. First of all, I have to import the files from the Google Colab, and then you know there a kind of a button is created, as you can see. That means that shows choose files, and when you click it, it shows you the option of the which file do you want to import and perform further analysis. All right, so I've imported the iris.csv file, but this dataset is actually imported in the form of a dictionary. All right, actually the dataset is in .csv format, but the Google has imported this in the form of a dictionary. All right, so I have to decode it into a UTF-8 format. So here I've used pd.read CSV and I've decoded it into UTF-8. All right, and then I have used the .head method to get an insight of how does my dataset actually looks like. So there's an ID, and then there's sepal length, and then there's sepal width, and then there's petal length and petal width, and there's a species. Species shows me uh, the total number of plant by which these four categories have been defined. All right. So I So to get an idea what are the total number of rows and columns present in my data set, I've used dot shape over here. All right. And then I've copied first. So before performing any feature engineering task in this original data set, I've actually copied the original data set into another variable, that is iris variable, so that my original data set is actually kept safe. All right. So then I have dropped. Now, as you can see, there was an ID. So you know that this ID is not going to help me in predicting my final species, right? So I'll be dropping this column. So I've just dropped it, and to get an idea, is it correct or not? So this is the way my final copied data set actually looks like. So consisting of four independent features, that is the sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width, right? So the shape of now reduces to 5 columns, right? Earlier it was 6 columns, right? And then to get an idea of how many total number of values of each species are present. So there are three species: Iris versicolor, Iris setosa, Iris virginica, each consisting of 50 species. So I've got this value by using dot value counts. All right. Then to get an idea whether any null value is present or not, and so to to summary out total number of null values present, I've used dot sum over here. All right. So zero shows me that there is no null value present in the data set. So we are good to go and perform any exploratory data analysis and prediction purpose, right? So but before moving forward, just to get an idea, how many total, what is the mean, what is the standard deviation of my data set. So I've used dot describe method. So there's a total number of counts, 150, 150. Then there's a mean, standard deviation, minimum value out of all these, and then the maximum value and 25% of it, and so on. All right. Now comes the task of exploratory data analysis, right? That means I'll be performing and representing the data into graphical format. That is actually a task of data visualization. So yeah, first of all, I'll be taking two independent features. So since there are four independent features, out of which I'll be taking two. At a particular type, I'll be representing petal width and petal length, and then I'll be repeating all these steps, right? All these steps for the sepal width and sepal length as well. So here the graph is shows. So as you can see, it is quite easily separable, right? As you can see that blue line represents iris setosa. So the last cluster, as you can see, represents iris setosa. Then the orange represents iris versicolor, and the green color represents iris virginica. All right, so it's quite easy to separate the clusters. Now comes the time I'll be using another two independent features, that is sepal length and sepal width. So, but now as you can see, the steps have been repeated the same. Yeah. So here is it how actually looks like. So blue line represents iris setosa, then orange represents iris versicolor, and the green represents iris virginica. So, but it's quite difficult to separate them out, right? So there's a kind of collinearity present between sepal length and sepal width, since it makes me difficult to categorize and separate the clusters. So yeah, now I plot the Pirac plot, right? I've plotted graphs of four independent features with their four independent features, right? So as you can see, it's a kind of correlation depicting graph, right? So sepal length have maximum values, right? It's as you can see from the graph also, you can interpret that cluster separation is quite difficult. And in case of sepal width also, since the graph, as you can see from the graph, the separation is quite difficult, right? But if you see in case of petal length, the graph here also green, orange and blue, green, orange, blue, they are quite easily separable. And as you can see, even the peaks are also quite easily separable, right? So petal length and petal width, I can say that collinearity is not present between petal length and petal width, but in case of sepal length and sepal width, collinearity is present, which should actually not be present. So now I'll be plotting a heat map. So for plotting a heat map, I'll be using the Seaborn library. So I used sns.heatmap over here and then plotted a dot correlation function. So here it is actually looks like. So 111 represents there is a complete correlation with present with these independent features. And then there's a positive and negative correlation as present as well. So as you can see, there's a negative correlation there's slightly correlation present between sepal width and sepal length. So we'll be considering petal length and petal width for predicting the final species. So now I'll be plotting a box plot with respect to sepal length and sepal width, and then petal length and petal width, and the species graph. So as you can see, the sepal width, sepal length, box plot is quite clear with the each representing and uh, depicting species clearly, right? In case of sepal width also, it is quite easy to separate each species. In case of petal length and petal width, it is also quite easy, but as you can see, in case of iris setosa, this is the blue one, quite dots are present. These dots are actually the number of outliers present, which would actually not be present, right? So this shows that iris setosa is negatively skewed, and while all the others species, that is iris versicolor and iris virginica, are normally distributed. So now I'll be performing k-means clustering. So, so the task is to predict the optimal number of clusters. So I've used k-means clustering over here, right? And how k-means clustering actually works like it calculates the total number of first is choose the total number of clusters to be taken that is represented by k, and then it selects the total number of random points as centroid values, right? Centroid values are actually the values which consists of all the features and are enough to represent a particular whole group of clusters, right? That means a particular group of clusters consisting of many data points. Instead of choosing those data points, where only one centroid value is enough to um, represent that particular cluster. So after that, I'll be assigning all the points to the closest centroid value of that cluster. All right, and then after that, I'll be recomputing the centroid of newly formed clusters. That is, and then after that, I'll be repeating the steps 3 and 4. So for performing k-means clustering, I've first defined the x and y variable. So yeah, as you can see, as you saw earlier, my dataset consists of 5 columns, right? So I'll be assigning 4 columns, that is sepal length, sepal width, and petal width to my X data that is going to be my training data set. And I'll be training the k-means clustering model to this training data. After that, I'll be predicting the final value to this target variable, that is Y. Iris species is if you remember, is my last column of my data set. So after that, I'll be defining WCSS such as empty list. All right, then I performed k-means clustering over here. So for k-means clustering, yeah, I will be first choosing the total number of clusters, and then the method I've used in it is k-means, and then the maximum iteration that I want the you know to occur is 300, and then the random state is 0. That means I don't want the data set to get shuffled. All right, then I've along with this, I've also fitted the model and the X training data set, right? And then I've been continuously appending the result into WCSS list. All right. Now to get the total number of clusters, I'll be using, there's one method which is known as elbow method. So for each clusters, I'll be calculating the WSSS. WSSS actually means within cluster sum of squares. It is the sum of squares of distances of each data point in all the clusters to their respective centroids. That means in a particular cluster, for each data point which are present, it will be calculating the distance between that particular data point and the centroid, right? So in order to classify that particular data point is present within that cluster itself. So and that so as you can see, the distance should be minimum, right? So the idea is actually to minimize the sum. So after that, I'll be plotting the curve according to the number of clusters, and the point where there will be a sudden bend in the plot will be considered as the optimum number of clusters to be taken to train my k-means clustering model. So, so here's the way I've plotted my elbow plot. So yeah, as you can see over here, hmm, so as you can see, values are continuous, and then there is a sudden bend over here. So after 2 and before 4, this point, I guess it's 3. So I'll be taking this particular point where the bend has actually occurred, right? So I'll be now training the model with the n clusters equals to 3, and then I've again used the init method as k-means, and the rest all the hyperparameters are same. Then I'll be using dot fit predict to train the model. Now the mostly many students are gets confused because when should we use dot fit, then dot predict, and dot fit predict, right? So dot fit and dot predict are actually used in supervised learning, right? If you have seen my last 2 videos, I've mostly used dot fit and dot predict to train and get the values, my final predicted values. But for unsupervised machine learning, we usually use dot fit predict. The reason being, dot fit predict is actually much more effective to use as compared to dot fit and dot predict separately. All right. So they are actually implemented using estimators. Estimator is nothing, just kind of you can say variable or a parameter which is helps in training the model, right? So after that, I have been the target variable which I have obtained over here by fitting and predicting the final value. So I have seen. So as you can see, the final predicted values 1111, 0, and 222. So since there were three species, that is Iris bird, Veronica and Serosa, and another one was versicolor, right? So I have classified them into three values, that means 0, 1, and 2. So I'll be now plotting a graph representing all these clusters and species and my final predicted value using a scatter. I've used dot scatter to plot a scatter plot over here. All right. So I've represented three colors, purple, orange, and green, to represent Iris setosa, Iris versicolor, and Iris virginica. All right. So here's how it looks like. And to represent the centers of each cluster, I've used dot scatter, and then I've labeled it as red color. So as you can see, here is a yellow color, and then a green, and a purple color. And here within each cluster, as you can see, there is a particular center which is represented by a red color. So red color is the centroids, and then the yellow color represents Iris versicolor, and the green color represents virginica, and the purple represents Iris setosa. Now I'll be to get in the centroid values, I'll be looking at it using k-means.cluster centers. It shows me the centroid value. All right. So 6.85, 5.006, and 5. Right. These are my centroid values, coordinates. All right. So now I'll be plotting a graph representing and comparing the actual and predicted um, values for each species, right? So I have used sklearn.p processing. I'll be first using label encoding. See guys, I have used label encoding over here because for categorical variables, to convert string dataset into numerical dataset, or we use label encoding, while we use one-hot encoding to convert, you know, numerical dataset into string dataset. All right. So I've used label encoding over here, and I've fitted then after that I've fitted and then transform the model. All right. So this is the way it actually looks like. Actual values is this. Actual value graph shows me this one, and the predicted value shows this one. So as you can see, my model is quite very much accurate, right? Because this one, as it's represented by red color, it's actually representing green color, right? And then the pink color over here is represented by another cluster, and then here is also another cluster. So the values are quite same, right? My model has performed fairly very well. So now, beside this cluster, since there are many algorithms in unsupervised machine learning as well. So right now I'll be using TSNE. So TSNE stands for Distributed Stochastic Neighbor Embedding. It is a kind of dimensionality reduction technique, just like a PCA, which stands for Principal Component Analysis. So since here I have 4D data, that means sepal length, sepal width, petal length, and petal width. So I'll be here converting it into 2D format. So here it is, three species are being classified and predicted and shown in this way, right? Now, um, also many people will say that there's a confusion, like when should we use dot fit and dot fit transform and dot transform method. So just like as I told you earlier, dot fit and dot transform are all these are implemented using transformers. It's transformer is nothing, just an estimator that implements a transform or fit transform methods. All right. So basically difference is nothing, but just fit transform is much more effective than using dot fit separately and then dot transforming separately, right? Fit transform actually means dot fitting then dot transform continuously. All right. So Another one is the DB scan. It means density based spatial clustering of applications with noise, right? So here I've used PC algorithm, right? PC is actually proved to be much more better as compared to the TSNE algorithm. So I've first defined the number of components over here. So I've defined this as 2, and then I've fitted the model and then transformed it. All right. So here, as you can see, also as just like k-means clustering, it has also defined um, 3 clusters, 2 clusters, but just another noise here. So first one is the cluster one, and the second one represents cluster two. But it has classified poorly, as it has classified the rest, which should be the third cluster. It has classified it as noise. So it has also performed not fairly well. So the best algorithm that have shown me over here is k-means clustering. So that's it, guys. Thank you for watching. If you have any doubt, please contact me in the comment section of, and don't worry about the code. I'll be putting the link of the of this git of my GitHub profile, and you can easily find the code in the description of this video. So that's it. Thank you, guys. Thank you all for watching.